Dr. Ella Vance had always believed that humanity's greatest strength lay in its adaptability. As a xenobiologist aboard the intergalactic research vessel New Horizons, she had dedicated her career to studying alien species, learning their biology, and understanding their unique traits. The galaxy, once a vast and uncharted wilderness, had slowly begun to open up to humankind. While humans were still new players in the interspecies community, they had already proven their worth through their ingenuity and relentless drive to survive. But Alara wasn't interested in the typical human traits that had earned their place in the galaxy. She believed humans had more to offer than just their physical toughness. They had the potential for intellectual evolution that no alien species could yet match. The New Horizons was on a mission to the ancient star system of Ulyssia, a region where countless alien species had gathered over the centuries to share knowledge, technology, and ideas. The star system was old, its planets long abandoned by civilizations that had come and gone, leaving only ruins and forgotten histories behind. It was here, on the planet Solithar, that Elara's work would bring her face-to-face with the Alir, an enigmatic species known for their almost incomprehensible longevity. The Alir lived for millennia, their wisdom spanning entire epochs. To them, longevity was not just a biological trait, it was a symbol of enlightenment. Their long lives allowed them to accumulate knowledge and evolve in ways that most other species could not fathom. Elara found herself both fascinated and irritated by the Alir. Their arrogance about their biology and intellect was unmistakable. Every time they spoke of their vast lifespans, they made sure to emphasize that they were the pinnacle of evolution. The humans, they often said, were fleeting creatures, little more than a temporary blip in the timeline of the galaxy, too short-lived to comprehend the vastness of time. While other species might have accepted this view as a natural result of the Alar's superiority, Elara could not. She believed that humanity's true potential had yet to be unlocked, and she was determined to prove it. Her mission on Solithar was simple enough: collect genetic samples from the Alir to study their biology and see if there was any way humans could learn from their extended lifespans. It was meant to be a routine assignment, but as with most things in Elara's life, it did not stay routine for long. While exploring the ruins of a long-abandoned Alir temple deep within the planet's jungle, Elara stumbled upon something unexpected. It was an artifact, half buried in the crumbled stone, its edges worn smooth by time. The artifact was unlike anything she had ever seen before. Its design was alien, even by the standards of the many species she had studied. There was something about it that made Elara's heart race with excitement. It pulsed faintly, as if it still contained some sort of energy, some purpose long forgotten by its creators. Without fully understanding what she was doing, Elara pressed a sequence of symbols on the device. The moment she did, the air around her seemed to shift. A strange hum filled the silence of the ruins, and the very fabric of reality seemed to warp for a brief moment. Time itself seemed to ripple, stretching and contracting in a way that was completely unnatural. Her surroundings blurred, and for a fraction of a second, Elara felt as if she was not in the present, but in the past or future. It was as if the universe itself had bent to the will of the device, shifting the flow of time. In the disorienting silence that followed, Elara blinked, trying to make sense of what had just happened. She glanced around, expecting to see the familiar landscape of the temple ruins. But instead, she saw something far more profound, a vision that shook her to the core. In a flash, Elara was presented with an image that seemed to be both a memory and a prophecy. She saw the Alir, but they were not the beings she had encountered in the present. In the vision, they appeared as humans, their faces familiar but worn with the passage of countless ages. The realization hit her like a thunderclap. The Alir were once humans from a different galaxy. Long ago. As the vision faded, Elara was left breathless, struggling to comprehend what she had just seen. The implications of the vision were staggering. The Alir were not the ancient, wise beings they claimed to be. They were a species that had once been human, transformed by the very artifact she had triggered. Their immortality, their superiority, their arrogance, it all began to unravel in that moment. The Alir's claim of being the pinnacle of evolution was nothing but a lie, a fey aid to mask the truth of their origins. But why had this happened? Why had the Elir forgotten their past, and why had they been so intent on hiding it? Elira's mind raced with questions, but the answers were elusive. She knew one thing for certain: the device she had activated was no ordinary artifact. It held the power to manipulate time itself, and in doing so, it had revealed a truth that the Elir had desperately tried to keep hidden for eons. As Elira stood in the ruins, her thoughts in turmoil, she couldn't help but wonder what else was hidden in the galaxy's vast history. What other truths had been lost, forgotten, or deliberately obscured by the ancient species that roam the stars? And most importantly, what did this revelation mean for humanity? Was there something more to their existence than they had ever realized? Was the potential of humanity somehow tied to the very mysteries the Elir had buried? With a deep breath, Elira turned toward the entrance of the ruins. She had just uncovered the first piece of a much larger puzzle, and she knew that her journey was only just beginning. The galaxy had many secrets, and humanity's role in it might be far more significant than anyone could ever have imagined. Dr. Elira Vance returned to the New Horizons with her mind still racing from the discovery she had made on Solithar. The visions of the Elir's past had shaken her to the core, and the implications of what she had seen were too enormous to process all at once. She knew she had uncovered something that could change the course of history, but she wasn't sure if the galaxy was ready for such a revelation. When she presented her findings to the ship's crew, however, the reaction was not what she expected. The other scientists dismissed her discovery as speculation, a product of her imagination. The idea that the Elir had once been human seemed too unbelievable, too outrageous. Some even suggested that Elira had been affected by the strange temporal anomaly caused by the artifact, her mind skewed by the experience. Elira tried to explain, to show them the evidence, the device, the data, the visions, but her colleagues were uninterested. They weren't ready to challenge their long-held assumptions about the Elir, who had long been regarded as one of the most ancient and revered species in the galaxy. But there was one group that wasn't dismissing her findings: the Galactic Council. Elira was summoned to a meeting, along with her mentor, Dr. Stephen Kaller. The Council, a collection of representatives from various galactic species, was not known for its quick decision-making. It deliberated on everything, and this time, the stakes were high. The Elir had long been a symbol of stability in the galaxy, and the idea that their origins might be tied to humanity was a political nightmare. The Council was divided. Some believed the truth should be revealed to the public, while others feared it would spark unrest. If the Elir's claim to superiority was a lie, then what did that mean for the entire galactic power structure? Veskahar, the Elir leader, was the most vocal in his opposition. He sent a private message to Elira, his tone sharp with suspicion. The revelation that the Elir were once human was something he couldn't tolerate. If this truth spread, it would unravel everything: the Elir's position in galactic politics, their moral authority, and the respect they commanded from the other species. Veskahar demanded that Elira suppress her findings and keep the secret hidden, threatening that any attempt to reveal the truth would result in severe consequences. The once polite, philosophical Elir had become paranoid, their leadership unraveling in the face of this discovery. As Elira began to analyze the device further, strange things started happening. Temporal anomalies became more frequent. At first, it was subtle, a flash of an unfamiliar place, a fleeting image of a distant planet. But as the days went on, the visions became clearer. She saw glimpses of humanity's ancestors, human-like beings on planets far from Earth, evolving in ways that were foreign to her. Each vision held cryptic messages, fragments of forgotten histories, and warnings from the device itself. It was as if the artifact was trying to communicate something, urging her to uncover more of the truth. With each passing day, the visions grew more intense, and Elira began to lose her sense of time. She found herself wondering if humanity had always been destined for something greater, or if, perhaps, they were not meant to be the galaxy's rulers at all. Was the truth about the Elir just the beginning? Was there a deeper secret, one that even the ancient species themselves had forgotten? The visions clouded her thoughts, forcing her to question her own loyalties. She had always believed in humanity's potential, but now she was faced with a moral dilemma. Should she risk revealing the truth to the galaxy, knowing it could ignite a war? Or should she keep the secret buried, preserving the fragile peace among the galactic species? The political intrigue continued to escalate. Elira's growing doubts were further fueled by a mysterious encounter during a diplomatic gathering on the New Horizons. A faction of Elir dissidents approached her rogue members of the Alirae species, who had become disillusioned with their immortality. They claimed that the long lifespan of the Elir, once seen as a gift, had actually become a curse. The Elir were no longer evolving, trapped in their stagnation. Their immortality had led to a slow mental decay, leaving them unable to adapt to the changing galaxy. The dissidents spoke of a rebellion. They saw Elira as a potential ally, someone who could help them unlock the secrets of their past and expose the lies that had been hidden for millennia. Elira found herself torn. The Elir had always been seen as the pinnacle of galactic civilization, and revealing their origins could destabilize the entire power structure. But the dissidents made a compelling argument. The Elir were stagnating, their society decaying from within. By uncovering the truth, they could force the Elir to confront their own flaws, perhaps even leading to a renaissance for their species. But doing so would undoubtedly cause chaos. Elira knew that if she chose to ally with the dissidents, she could destabilize the delicate peace between the galactic powers, potentially starting a war. She had to weigh the consequences of her actions carefully. Was it worth the risk to expose the truth, even if it meant plunging the galaxy into uncertainty? As if the external pressures weren't enough, Elira's relationship with her mentor, Dr. Sivan Kaller, began to fracture. Sivan, ever the pragmatist, insisted that the truth should remain hidden for the sake of peace. He argued that revealing the Elir's origins would cause irreparable harm, potentially destroying everything they had worked for. Elira, on the other hand, felt a growing sense of responsibility to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. The more she delved into the device's secrets, the more she began to distrust the Elir, especially Veskahar and his leadership. The notion that humanity was destined for something greater, perhaps even for a new role in the galaxy, started to take root in her mind. Their once strong bond began to erode, with Sivan increasingly frustrated by Elira's obsession with the revelations. He warned her that the cost of exposing the truth might be higher than she was willing to pay. Yet, in her heart, Elira couldn't ignore the growing pull of the visions, the idea that humanity had a greater destiny, one that the Elir had long hidden from the galaxy. The conflict was personal, political, and philosophical, and Elira found herself caught in the middle of it all. Her growing connection with Tethra, the charismatic Elir dissenter, only complicated matters further. Tethra's passion for change, for a future where the Elir could evolve beyond their stagnation, resonated with Elira. He spoke of a new path for both the Elir and humanity, one that could break free from the chains of the past. But as their bond deepened, Elira had to ask herself, was she truly ready to challenge everything she had believed in? Was the truth worth the sacrifice? The stakes were higher than ever. As Elira stood at the crossroads of truth, loyalty, and power, she realized that her decision would not only affect the future of humanity, but also the very fabric of the galaxy itself. The visions Elira had been experiencing began to grow more intense, more unsettling. The device, which she had first thought of as a simple artifact, was no longer just a tool. It had become a portal to deeper, more terrifying revelations. For weeks, she had been caught in a whirlwind of temporal anomalies, fragmented glimpses of humanity's distant past, and cryptic messages from the unknown. But this latest vision was unlike any she had ever seen before. This time, there was no ambiguity, no room for misinterpretation. The truth was as clear as it was horrifying. In the vision, Elira saw an ancient race of beings tall, imposing, and impossibly advanced. They were the precursors, a species that had once dominated the galaxy, manipulating the very fabric of life itself. These beings had the ability to alter the biological evolution of other species, bending them to their will. They had experimented with countless species, striving to create the perfect being, one that could transcend the limitations of time and space. The Elir, it seemed, were the result of one such experiment. They were not simply humans from another galaxy. They were an engineered creation, the product of the precursors' dark ambitions. The Elir's immortality, once thought to be a gift from nature, was in fact a curse. It was the result of a brutal and unnatural process, a manipulation of their biology that had trapped them in an eternal cycle of stagnation. The very essence of their being, their long lifespan, was not a symbol of enlightenment, but a chain that bound them to a state of arrested development. The precursors had created them to be perfect, but in doing so, they had robbed them of the ability to adapt, to evolve, to change. And now, after millennia of imposed immortality, the Elira were a hollow reflection of what they could have been. For Elira, the revelation was nothing short of earth-shattering. Everything she had believed about the Elir, about their superiority, their wisdom, and their place in the galaxy, had been a lie. The Elir were not the epitome of evolution, they were a failed experiment, a species whose potential had been stunted by the very gift they had once considered their greatest strength. And the more she learned, the more she realized that humanity, for all its flaws, held something the Elir had lost long ago: the ability to evolve, to adapt, to break free from the constraints of the past. But the deeper Elira dug into the device's secrets, the more she came to understand that humanity's potential was even greater than she had imagined. The precursors, it seemed, had not only manipulated the Elir, but had been quietly observing humanity from the shadows. The true nature of humanity was not bound by the limitations of a short lifespan. It lay in humanity's capacity for rapid evolution, for jumping from one stage of development to another without being shackled by time. The precursors had feared humanity's potential, and it was clear now that they had been preparing to reawaken, to resume their experiments, and perhaps to finish what they had started with the Elir. The implications were staggering. The galaxy, as it stood, was teetering on the brink of chaos. If the precursors returned, if they regained control over the species they had experimented with, it could mean the end of freedom for everyone. Only humanity's ability to adapt, to evolve at an incredible rate, could stand against the precursors' power. But the question remained: how could humanity be prepared for such a confrontation? And how could Elira ensure that humanity was not destroyed in the process? As the stakes grew higher, Elira found herself at a crossroads. She knew she had to share the truth about the Elir, about the precursors, about everything. But doing so would shatter the fragile peace that had existed between the galactic species. If she revealed the truth, it would ignite a war that could tear the galaxy apart. On the other hand, if she kept the secret buried, she would be condemning the galaxy to an uncertain future, one where the precursors could once again manipulate the evolution of all species. The galaxy's very survival depended on her decision, and the weight of that responsibility was almost unbearable. The time had come for Elira to make a choice. Her decision was a painful one. She couldn't allow the galaxy to fall into chaos, to risk a war that could destroy everything she had fought for. The revelations she had uncovered the truth about the Elir, the precursors, and humanity's potential were too dangerous to be made public. But there was a price to pay for keeping the secret buried. To protect the galaxy, Elira made the agonizing choice to destroy the device. It was the only way to sever the connection to the temporal anomalies, to prevent the visions and the growing instability that threatened to consume everything. With trembling hands, she activated the device one final time. A burst of light filled the room, and for a moment, Elira felt the weight of the universe pressing down on her. She knew that in destroying the device, she was not just severing a link to the past, but also sacrificing her own chance at proving the truth. She had no proof now, no way to show anyone what she had discovered. The galaxy would remain ignorant of the Elir's origins, of the dark truth that lay behind their immortality. But it was a price she was willing to pay for the greater good. But even as the device's light faded and the anomalies ceased, Elira felt an overwhelming sense of loss. She had chosen to protect the galaxy from itself, to keep the truth hidden, but the cost had been steep. She had no way of knowing whether her decision had been the right one. The galaxy would go on, blissfully unaware of the darkness that lay just beneath the surface, but Elira would carry the burden of that knowledge for the rest of her life. In the aftermath, Elira found herself face to face with Veskahur, the Elir leader. He had sensed the disruption in the temporal flow and had come to confront her. In a final confrontation, he demanded to know what Elira had uncovered, what she had done to the device. But Elira, her mind clouded with doubt and pain, refused to reveal the truth. She couldn't bring herself to unleash the secrets she had learned, knowing the havoc they could cause. Veskahar, for all his arrogance and fear, was left in the dark. And in that moment, Ella realized the true cost of her decision. She had protected the galaxy from a potential war, but at what price? She had chosen to preserve peace, even if it meant hiding the truth forever. And yet, in doing so, she had lost something far more important, her belief in the future. In the end, Elora was left with one question: was humanity truly ready for the truth? And if they were not, what did that say about the galaxy's future? The decision to destroy the device, to silence the truth of the Ire's origins, had been one Elora could never truly reconcile. She had made a sacrifice, not just for the galaxy, but for herself. The weight of that choice pressed down on her every day since. The Galactic Council, after much deliberation, had decided to keep the truth buried, maintaining the status quo of the intergalactic peace. The Alir continued to rule with their long, unbroken history, unaware of the true nature of their origins, and the balance of power was temporarily preserved. But nothing was as it seemed. The uneasy peace could not last forever. For the Alir, the centuries of immortality had done more than just stagnate their culture, it had seeped into their very psyche. Beneath the surface, a sense of dread gnawed at them. There were whispers among the Alir elite, small, almost imperceptible shifts in their once unshakable confidence. Some began to sense that something was wrong, though they could not name it. But they remained blind to the source of their discomfort, their true origins, hidden in the shadows by Elera's fateful decision. They continued to assert their position in the galaxy as the wise, immortal rulers, but there was a hollow ring to their declarations now, a quiet fragility that was hard to ignore. Meanwhile, humanity had achieved what many once thought impossible. Its place in the galaxy was no longer a matter of physical might or military prowess. Instead, it was rooted in something more subtle, more profound. Humans had shown that their greatest strength lay not in longevity or in stagnant wisdom, but in their boundless capacity to adapt, to evolve at a pace that no other species could match. Humanity had proven that, despite its relatively short lifespan, its ability to rapidly evolve, to learn and grow, was what made it formidable. It wasn't a fleeting force in the galaxy, it was an emerging power, not defined by the past, but by an unpredictable, powerful future. Elora, for all her pain and sacrifice, had become a symbol of this adaptability. In a galaxy filled with species that clung to traditions and unchanging cycles, she was the embodiment of what humanity had to offer: a relentless drive for progress. Her name was known in every corner of the galaxy, whispered with awe and respect by some, with suspicion by others. Yet, the uneasy peace was never truly comfortable, not for her, and certainly not for the galaxy as a whole. It was when Elora returned to Earth that the unsettling truth of her choices caught up with her in the most unexpected way. The home she had fought so hard to protect, the species she had believed could one day lead the galaxy, was already being subtly shaped by forces beyond her control. As she sat in her lab, reviewing the latest research, she stumbled across a piece of data, an anomaly in human genetic evolution. It was subtle at first, just a minor alteration in the genetic code, but Elora's sharp instincts told her that it was more than a coincidence. The anomaly had been present for years, undetected by the scientific community. At first, she thought it was an error, a mistake in the research. But the more she delved into it, the more she realized with a growing sense of horror that the alterations were not random. The genetic patterns were being manipulated. Someone, or something, had been quietly interfering with human evolution. It was the precursors, though she hadn't realized it at first. The ancient race, the very ones responsible for the creation of the Alir, were already infiltrating human society, manipulating humanity's genetic code in preparation for their eventual return. It was clear now that the precursors had never truly disappeared. They had been operating in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to reassert their control. They had seen the potential in humanity, and they were carefully guiding its evolution to suit their own purposes. Humanity's rapid adaptation, once seen as a strength, was now a double-edged sword. The precursors had been subtly molding humans, preparing them for a role they hadn't chosen, but one that might be thrust upon them soon enough. The very thing Elara had fought to protect humanity's freedom, its future was now in jeopardy, not from the Alir or the galaxy's political leaders, but from an ancient force that had long been forgotten. The revelation struck Elara like a blow to the chest. She had sacrificed everything to keep the truth hidden, to prevent a galactic war, and to protect humanity. But now, it seemed, humanity was not free. It was not safe. The precursors were already at work, shaping the species she had fought so hard to defend. And there was nothing she could do to stop it. The device had been destroyed, but the consequences of her decision were far more profound than she had ever anticipated. Humanity was once again at the mercy of forces far beyond its comprehension, its future hanging in the balance. The uneasy peace she had fought for was slipping through her fingers, and with it, humanity was not the pinnacle of evolution, nor was it the innocent species she had hoped it was. It was a species on the cusp of something far greater and potentially far more dangerous. The precursors had already begun to shape its destiny, and it seemed that no one, not even Elara, could stop it.as she stood at the edge of the galaxy, looking out over the stars. Elara was left with a final, lingering question: was humanity truly the pinnacle of evolution? Merely the first step in a much larger, far more complicated journey? The future, once full of promise, was now clouded with uncertainty. Humanity's potential was limitless, but so too was the danger that came with it. And as she looked out into the unknown, Elara couldn't help but wonder, if humanity's potential was boundless, what price would it pay to evolve into something more extraordinary and more dangerous than anyone could have imagined? In the end, she realized that the true test of humanity's potential had only just begun. And perhaps for all her sacrifices, the cost of the future was not yet clear.